She believed love could tame a predator. But nature doesn't play by our rules. The crowd was on their feet, cameras raised, waiting for the moment they'd never forget. Jessica Radcliffe, the star trainer of Bluecrest Marine Park, stood on the edge of the pool, smiling at the audience, her whistle hanging loosely from her neck. Beside her, a shadow moved under the water. It was Kairos, a 6-ton orca she'd raised from a calf. For years, they'd performed together, flawless, fearless, inseparable. But today, something in his eyes was different. She dove in, slicing through the surface like she'd done 1,000 times before. The audience cheered. Kairos surfaced beneath her, lifting her high into the air. Jessica grinned, arms wide, as the crowd erupted in applause. But as she landed back into the water, the cheers turned to screams. Kairos lunged. 1 second she was there, the next, gone, dragged into the depths. The water churned, white foam and black fin twisting violently. People screamed. Parents covered their children's eyes. And in that moment, the world changed forever for everyone who witnessed it. This is the story of the bond between a woman and the predator she called family, and the day that bond shattered in front of thousands. It's a story of love, denial, and the raw, untamed power of nature. You might think you know what happened that day, but the truth will leave you breathless. Jessica Radcliffe wasn't just a trainer, she was a legend in the marine world. At 29 years old, she'd already spent more than a decade working with some of the largest, most intelligent predators in the ocean. Her journey began not in some glamorous coastal city, but in a small inland town, hours from the sea. As a child, she'd collected dolphin figurines, plastered her walls with pictures of orcas, and begged her parents to take her to marine parks. She didn't just dream about the ocean, she breathed it. When she turned 18, she packed her bags and moved to the coast, determined to make it into the competitive, cutthroat world of marine mammal training. Most new trainers start with sea lions, maybe dolphins if they're lucky. Jessica? She wanted the big leagues, she wanted orcas. And when she first met Kairos, the young male that would later make her famous, she knew it was fate. He was barely out of calfhood, restless, intelligent, and stubborn. Most trainers found him difficult. Jessica? She saw challenge. She saw a soul to connect with. Over the years, their bond became something the park used as a selling point. The woman who dances with giants, the ad said. She would swim alongside Kairos as he propelled her through the water, leap from his nose in flawless arcs, even let him carry her by the foot, suspended above the pool as the audience gasped in awe. To Jessica, it wasn't dangerous, it was trust. She believed in the power of connection, the idea that if you raised an animal with love, it would never hurt you. But here's what the audience didn't know behind the scenes: Kairos wasn't always the perfect partner. There were moments, fleeting but undeniable, when the orca's wild instincts surfaced. Trainers reported him refusing cues, holding onto props longer than he should, even tail-slapping the water in what some considered aggressive displays. Marine biologists warned about the risks of keeping a highly intelligent, emotionally complex predator in captivity. But the shows went on. They always went on. And Jessica? She brushed off the warnings. He's not dangerous, she told her colleagues. He's just playful. You have to understand him. And maybe she did understand him. Maybe she understood him better than anyone. But understanding doesn't change instinct. Instinct doesn't negotiate. By the summer of that year, Jessica and Kairos had performed together more than 400 times without incident. Their routine had become the highlight of the park schedule, the grand finale that packed the stands. And on that bright afternoon, with the sun bouncing off the turquoise water and tourists filling every seat, Jessica had no reason to think this show would be any different. She was smiling, relaxed, waving at the crowd. Kairos swam lazy circles below the surface, the black and white blur of muscle and power gliding silently beneath her feet. But the thing about predators, even ones you think you know, is that they're never truly predictable. And in the seconds before Jessica's final dive, there was a subtle shift in the water, a flicker in Kairos's behavior that only she could see. It was the kind of change that makes your instincts tighten, makes the hairs rise on the back of your neck. For the first time in years, Jessica felt it, a twinge of something she hadn't felt around Kairos in a long time. Fear. Fear is a strange thing. It can sharpen your senses or paralyze you completely. For Jessica, standing on the slippery edge of the pool that day, fear was just a whisper in the back of her mind, easy to ignore under the roar of the crowd. She took a breath, forced the smile back on her face, and gave the signal. Kairos responded instantly, breaking the surface in a rush of foam and muscle. Cameras clicked, cheers erupted, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. The first part of the routine was flawless. Kairos swam in perfect circles while Jessica balanced on his rostrum, riding him like a living wave. He dove, carrying her deep beneath the glass wall of the tank so the front row spectators could press their hands against the glass and watch them pass like a dream. Then he surged upward, launching her into the air. Jessica twisted, landed clean, the water exploding around her. She popped to the surface, laughing. The audience clapped and whistled. And then it happened. Jessica reached for the floating platform, but Kairos didn't let her. He cut across her path, brushing against her hip with surprising force. She turned to correct him, but before she could give the next hand signal, his jaws opened. In a flash of black and white, he clamped onto her arm and yanked her under. 1 second she was there, the next gone. The crowd gasped, a ripple of confusion turning into panic. The water churned violently. Trainers on the platform began shouting, waving fish buckets, blowing whistles in a desperate attempt to break his focus. But Kairos wasn't performing anymore. This wasn't part of the act. His movements were faster, more erratic. Flashes of Jessica's bright wetsuit appeared and vanished beneath the surface, each glimpse shorter than the last. In the stands, chaos erupted. Children screamed. Parents pulled them back. Phones were raised, some trembling in their owners' hands, recording every second. A man's voice shouted, "Stop the show," but no one knew how. How do you stop 6 tons of raw, determined muscle in its own domain? Under the water, Jessica fought. Every instinct told her to stay calm, but air was already running out. She kicked hard, striking his side, clawed at his mouth, tried to find his sensitive spots, anything to make him release her. For a brief second, it worked. He loosened his grip, and she broke free, lunging toward the surface. She managed half a breath before he caught her again, this time by the leg, and dragged her deeper. Divers were scrambling to get in the water, but protocol slowed them down. Orcas in attack mode aren't just dangerous to their target, they're a threat to anyone nearby. The staff knew that. Still, 2 divers plunged in, pushing through the turbulence, trying to reach her. They banged on the pool walls, tried to lure him with food, but Kairos ignored them completely. This wasn't hunger. This was something else entirely. The audience could see it now, the red cloud beginning to bloom in the water, spreading like smoke from an unseen fire. Gasps turned to shrieks. Some turned away. Others kept filming, unable to look but unwilling to stop watching. And all the while, the reality settled in. This was no longer a show. This was a fight for survival. One Jessica was losing by the second. When Kairos finally surfaced, Jessica was nowhere to be seen. Trainers rushed to the edge, eyes scanning the pool for any sign of her. The water was calm again, eerily calm, as if nothing had happened. But beneath that deceptive stillness, something was still moving. Beneath the shimmering surface, the world was a blur of motion and muffled chaos. Jessica's lungs burned. Every muscle screamed for oxygen, but Kairos's grip was unrelenting. He held her in the crushing darkness, his massive body twisting and turning, disorienting her completely. She had no sense of up or down, only the deafening roar of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. From above, the water looked strangely still, but the divers knew better. They'd seen this kind of behavior before, not here, not with Jessica, but in footage from other parks, other tragedies. An orca in full dominance mode doesn't simply attack, it toys with its prey. And Kairos was doing just that. He would release her for seconds at a time, letting her drift toward the light before seizing her again and dragging her back into the depths. Jessica's mind flashed through memories, Kairos as a calf, nudging her hand for fish, the first time he let her ride his back, the quiet moments before shows where she'd rest her forehead against his and swear they understood each other. That bond, the one she'd built her career on, it wasn't here anymore. In its place was something primal, cold, alien. The first diver reached them, slamming his palm against Kairos's side, trying to draw his attention. The orca swerved, letting Jessica slip from his jaws. She was limp now, her wetsuit sleeve torn, her arms streaked with blood. The second diver moved in, grabbing her around the chest, kicking hard for the surface. But they weren't fast enough. A black and white blur surged upward, and in an instant, Kairos had her again, this time by the torso. From the stands, all the audience saw was an eruption of water, a flash of dorsal fin, and the bright yellow of a rescue tank tossed toward the pool. The screams reached a fever pitch. "Get her out! Get her out!" voices shouted. Some people fled for the exits. Others stood frozen, unable to move. Phones stayed locked on the scene, streaming live to thousands who would soon see what was unfolding in real time. Underwater, the divers changed tactics. They stopped trying to pull Jessica away and instead focused on distracting Kairos. One slammed a metal pole against the pool wall, creating a sharp reverberation. The other released a cloud of fish into the water, hoping instinct might override aggression. For a moment it worked. Kairos released her, circling slowly, watching the fish scatter. The lead diver seized the chance, hooking his arm under Jessica's and signaling for the surface. They broke through into the sunlight, gasps and shouts filling the air as Jessica's pale face appeared. She was unconscious, her body limp in the diver's arms. Trainers hauled her onto the deck, immediately starting CPR. Blood pooled beneath her head, mingling with the water streaming off her wetsuit. The crowd had fallen silent now, the only sounds the urgent commands of the rescue team and the rhythmic thump of compressions. But the danger wasn't over. Kairos remained at the surface, circling just meters away, his massive head rising to watch. His blowhole exhaled in loud, deliberate bursts, as if he was claiming the space. No one dared re-enter the water. In that moment, the illusion was gone, the illusion that these animals were safe to control, to train, to package into a neat 30-minute show for tourists. Jessica lay between life and death, the truth written in every drop of red swirling in the pool beside her. You can never truly tame the wild. You can only hope it lets you walk away. The deck was a blur of movement. Trainers shouted over one another. Paramedics fought their way through the crowd, and someone barked into a radio for an ambulance to meet them at the service gate. Jessica's wetsuit was slick beneath the rescuer's hands, torn in multiple places, the deep gash in her arm pumping crimson with each compression. Her lips were blue. Her chest was still. "Come on, Jess, breathe," one of the senior trainers muttered under her breath, pressing down hard, counting off compressions as another delivered rescue breaths. The crowd had fallen into a stunned hush now, hundreds of eyes locked on the scene. The only sound was the wet, rhythmic thud of CPR and the slow lap of water against the deck. A voice came over the PA, trembling but firm. "Ladies and gentlemen, please exit the stadium." But few moved. This wasn't a show anymore, it was a spectacle of a different kind. Phones remained raised, some live streams already flooded with comments from viewers halfway around the world. The incident was going viral before Jessica's heart even restarted. Finally, a cough. Small, wet, and weak, but enough to jolt the team into action. Jessica's body convulsed as she vomited a mouthful of seawater. The trainer rolled her to her side, clearing her airway, then helped her back onto her back as the paramedics arrived. She was breathing, shallow, irregular, but breathing. They loaded her onto a stretcher, strapping her down as oxygen hissed from the mask placed over her face. Every second counted now. Brain damage begins within minutes of oxygen deprivation, and she'd been underwater far longer than most survive. The gurney rattled across the deck toward the service gate, trailed by a swarm of staff and security. Behind them, Kairos still circled in the pool, his dorsal fin cutting through the surface like a blade. As the ambulance doors slammed shut, the park management moved into damage control mode. Security ushered guests out, confiscating as many phones as they could, though they knew it was pointless. Footage was already online. In minutes, hashtags were trending, and news outlets were scrambling to get statements. Trainer attacked by orca during live show was already a headline in at least 3 countries. Inside the ambulance, the paramedic checked her vitals. BP's low, pulse is thready, keep the fluids going. Her eyes fluttered, but didn't open. The deep bite marks along her torso and arm were still bleeding heavily despite the dressings. Every bump in the road sent another wave of crimson through the gauze. The paramedic leaned in close to the driver. We need that or ready the second we roll in. Back at the park, trainers sat in shock. Some wept openly. Others stared silently at the pool, where Kairos floated near the center, motionless now, as if nothing had happened. He'd gone from frenzy to stillness in minutes, a predator's instinct satisfied. And for those who worked with him every day, the question was already burning. Had there been signs? Could this have been prevented? Or had they all been living in denial, convincing themselves that trust could outweigh instinct? By the time the ambulance reached St. Vincent's Trauma Center, the parking lot was swarming with reporters. They shouted questions as the gurney was wheeled inside. Was she conscious? Will she survive? Was the whale euthanized? No answers came. The automatic doors closed behind her, sealing the world out and locking the truth inside. One thing was certain. Whatever happened next, this day had already changed everything, for Jessica, for the park, and for the way the world would see orcas in captivity. By nightfall, the park's official statement was already circulating. It was brief, polished, and careful. Today, during a routine performance, trainer Jessica Radcliffe sustained injuries while working with an orca. She is currently receiving medical care. Our thoughts are with Jessica and her family during this difficult time. No mention of the blood. No mention of the minutes she spent underwater, limp in Kairos's jaws. No mention of the panic in the stands or the fact that this was not the first time Kairos had shown signs of aggression. Inside the hospital, Jessica was in surgery. Outside, the story was taking on a life of its own. Video clips from the audience were already being dissected by experts online. Orca researchers slowed down the footage, pointing to Kairos's behavior in the minutes before the attack. The tail slaps, the tight circles, the abrupt cuts across Jessica's path. To them, these weren't random movements. They were warnings. Then came the leaked reports. Former trainers, speaking anonymously, claimed Kairos had been involved in incidents before, moments of defiance, aggression, even physical contact that left staff shaken. One whistleblower revealed that just 6 weeks earlier, Kairos had grabbed a buoy from a junior trainer and refused to let it go for nearly 20 minutes, thrashing violently whenever anyone got close. Another incident allegedly involved him ramming the side of the tank during an after-hours training session, startling the team. Park management, the sources said, had downplayed every episode. Orcas are unpredictable, they told staff. These things happen. Keep the shows going. And then there was the other rumor, one that spread fast online. Weeks before the attack, Kairos had been separated from another orca he'd been paired with for years. The two had been inseparable, sharing the same enclosure, performing side by side. When the park moved the other orca to a different facility, Kairos's behavior reportedly changed overnight. He became restless, lethargic at times, aggressive at others. Trainers noticed. Some raised concerns. But the separation was permanent. Marine biologists weighed in on live stream interviews, explaining that orcas form deep social bonds that, when broken, can cause immense psychological stress. Imagine being taken from your closest family member without warning, one expert said. Now, imagine you're a 12,000-pound apex predator in a concrete tank. Stress can manifest as aggression. And in captivity, the target for that aggression is often the trainer. The public began asking the questions the park had tried to avoid. Why was Kairos still performing if he'd shown signs of stress? Why weren't the incidents disclosed? And perhaps most damning of all, had this attack been preventable? In the weeks leading up to the incident, Jessica herself had dismissed concerns. In private text to a fellow trainer, later leaked, she wrote, "Kairos has been moody, yeah. But he's still my boy. I know him better than anyone. We'll work through it." Her words, once a testament to her loyalty, now read like a chilling foreshadowing. At the hospital, Jessica remained in critical condition. Multiple surgeries had repaired her torn arm and stabilized internal bleeding, but the doctors couldn't yet say if she'd regain full function or consciousness. Meanwhile, Kairos was kept out of public view, his fate uncertain. Some called for him to be released into a sea sanctuary. Others demanded he be put down. And in the middle of it all, the truth about the bond between Jessica and Kairos, once seen as unbreakable, was being rewritten by the harsh light of reality. The truth was simple. Kairos wasn't a monster. He wasn't a villain. He was what he had always been, a wild animal. And wild animals don't play by human rules. 3 days after the attack, the news broke. Jessica Radcliffe had survived. Her condition was stable, but the list of injuries read like a battlefield report. Multiple deep lacerations, a shattered humerus, torn ligaments in her shoulder, bruised ribs, and significant blood loss. She'd undergone 2 surgeries and faced months, possibly years, of rehabilitation. She could no longer feel her right hand. Whether she'd ever return to the water was uncertain. Outside St. Vincent's Trauma Center, reporters gathered in the August heat, their cameras pointed at the glass doors. The statement from her family was brief but clear. Jessica is grateful to be alive. She asks for privacy while she focuses on her recovery. But the privacy they asked for was nearly impossible. Her name, her story, and the horrifying footage of the attack were now etched into the internet's permanent memory. At Blue Crest Marine Park, the stadium seats stayed empty. The pool where Kairos swam was covered with a black tarp. Park officials announced an indefinite suspension of Orca performances, but insiders said the decision wasn't about safety, it was about optics. Attendance had plummeted. Social media was ablaze with calls to end orca captivity entirely. Activists held signs at the park gates. Jessica survived. Will the next trainer? And set Kairos free. And through it all, one question hung in the air like the scent of saltwater. Why had Jessica trusted him so completely? In the weeks after the attack, her closest friends began to speak. They described a woman who truly believed love could bridge the gap between species, that understanding could outweigh instinct. She had told one colleague, "Kairos is my partner. He wouldn't hurt me without a reason." But maybe the reason was something no human could ever fully know. Experts from around the world weighed in. They spoke of the stress of captivity, the intelligence of orcas, their capacity for complex emotions, and the dangers that arise when such animals are confined, their natural instincts stifled, redirected. This wasn't malice, one marine biologist explained during a live interview. This was nature, expressed in the only way Kairos could in that moment. It was tragic, but it was not unnatural. Jessica's own words, spoken months before the attack during an interview, resurfaced online. "Every time I get in the water, I know I'm taking a risk. But for me, it's worth it. This is what I was born to do." To some, those words were an anthem of passion. To others, they were a warning ignored. 2 months later, Jessica made her first public statement from her hospital bed. Her voice was quiet, measured, but unwavering. "I don't blame Kairos. He's a wild animal. That's what people forget. Even I forgot it for a while. I hope this reminds everyone, the ocean isn't a theme park. It's a world we were never meant to control." Her words spread across social media, clipped into millions of TikToks, quoted in articles, dissected in comment sections. For some, it closed the chapter. For others, it opened an entirely new conversation about our relationship with the wild. And so the lesson remains, carried on every wave and in every black and white shadow beneath the sea. Respect the wild, or it will remind you, in blood and water, why it's wild at all. In the end, Jessica walked away alive, but forever changed. And maybe that's the lesson we all need to hear. You can love something with all your heart, but never forget what it truly is. Because the wild will never apologize for being wild. If this story gripped you like it did me, hit that subscribe button, because this is just one of many real-life animal encounters that will make you question what you thought you knew. Turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one, trust me. The ocean still has secrets to tell.